Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today we are going to be sharing the next hour or so with a gentleman named Steve Moore. He's in Seattle. He's an entrepreneur. And what I love about this, think about things that I love doing. I love hiking. I love things that I don't get dirty in. Now, when I was younger, I loved camping. I loved going swimming and all those things. And now it's hard for me to want to go do those things because I somehow became a clean freak. And so this is like one of my areas that I need to get out of my comfort zone in. So I'm excited to have this conversation. But he's been traveling, for 6 months in Alaska on an extended music tour. And then he came back to Washington and started a business called Camp and Car. So Camp, capital N, Car. And it helps people realize the potential of their vehicles so they can have more affordable camping, stylish, things like that. And yeah, he just loves helping people go and fulfill their self and go and experience more of this beautiful planet we live in, and feeling comfortable and confident doing so. So thank you, Steve, for joining us today. Go ahead and share kind of your history, where you came from, and why you're so passionate about what you're doing right now.
Right on. Well, yeah, thanks, Samuel, for having me on and giving me the opportunity to share my story with your audience. I grew up here in Washington, and beaches, kind of terrain place. There's kind of everything there. You've got, like, in one day you could go from the outer coast to a rainforest to like a 6,000 foot mountain peak and see the view of the ocean from that peak. You could make that happen all in a day. And so it was really a good place to kind of grow up and cultivate a love for the outdoors. But it took a while for me to get there. Like, you grow up around something so beautiful and something you're so privileged to have, and a lot of times it doesn't take it takes a while for you to realize what the beauty of really what you've been given and how lucky you are to have it in your backyard and have it nearby for you to access. And I started learning a little more about how lucky I was with all that in my early 20s and late teens, and sort of just understood that, like, spending time in these natural wild places was really beneficial to my mental health and my physical health, and gave me a place to reflect on my, my doings in my normal day-to-day life, and gave me a place to, like, go with people I loved and feel like the best version of myself, like feel completely free from, peering eyes. We really gained an appreciation for just going out for days at a time in the wilderness and just being goofballs, but coming out of those experiences with a renewed sense of purpose and, like, applying that energy to our careers and things we were doing to, try and make the world. Ultimately, that kind of led me after college to work in the environmental nonprofit world. I had 3 years at a company called Washington Trails Association. Most people who do hiking in the Northwest and Washington specifically are really familiar with them. They have a big trail database. They do a lot of trail maintenance work with a huge, like, multi-thousand person volunteer team that they have. And I was kind of, one of my roles was to help manage all those volunteers and all those efforts to get people out and working on trails and, really maintaining these beautiful places for others to enjoy. So my career has definitely started out with this mindset of, like, helping people, experience the outdoors in a safe and fun way with minimal impact on the land. And so I really kind of had this moment, though, where I was like, this job is great, but I want to, like, before I really bog myself down with a bunch of commitments, I want to get out there and do some more deeper travel. And I kind of tied it into this passion I'd been building for musical performance. I mean, I've been playing music my whole life since I was about 10 years old. But during my young adulthood, working for WTA in Seattle, I was also going out and doing open mics and improving my skills as a performer of solo acoustic instrumental music. And I had gotten to play a couple shows and really kind of gotten a taste for what that world was like and what it felt like to put yourself out there musically and be received by a community, and how to do that and how to even make some money doing it. And so I kind of hatched this plan to quit my job and buy a vehicle that could be theoretically lived out of, had enough space, that would have enough space for all my needs and for me to sleep, and go travel up to Alaska, a place I had been once before on a long weekend trip and completely fallen in love with, just because of its extra bigness and its extra wildness that, doesn't really compare to anything we have in the lower 48. And so I quit my job. I bought a Honda Element, and my good friend from Squim, one of my best friends, Marty, and I made this like wooden camper platform for the back of my car, just strictly for me to travel in. It was no business long-term aspirations in this project. We just put it together using 3D modeling and CNC machinery. He's a trained engineer, and so he can use a lot of these cool tools and applications to help fabricate stuff in a really precise, like awesome way. And so we built this platform that had some cabinetry and under storage for my Honda Element, and it gave me the perfect area to sleep. And I took off in early April, and I booked a whole like string of gigs driving through Canada and Alaska, and had some festival performances I was booked for. And I just traveled all around the state and through Canada as well, and played music and connected with all kinds of people in different places, had a lot of crazy experiences at the hands of Mother Nature, and various hiking and other kinds of trips in the deep wilderness there and in the north. And just really like lived in a really kind of moment, like intentional way, without having a lot of you know a strict schedule, or a lot of things attaching me to where I was at the time. And it definitely was difficult, and like you're grappling with a lot of loneliness and insecurity, and you're also living in a very full way where every day is kind of this novel thing that you might wake up and not have anything on your calendar for a whole week, and you're just living out of your car. So it's like, how do I manifest some really awesome connection and positivity with this blank slate that I've been presented today? And how do I use the resources I have, in myself and in the communities around me, to really make the most of this? And so it was challenging in a lot of ways, but it was also extremely invigorating. And ultimately I decided, this was great, and I had a lot of amazing memories and everything that I pulled from it, but I felt like this isn't something I want to do forever. Like, I want to get back to my community in Washington, my family and my old friends, and I want to start a new phase of my career and a new chapter of creation and kind of just making stuff happen. And I ended up moving back to a town on the Olympic Peninsula, not my hometown, but another one called Port Townsend, where Martin, the guy who helped make the platform, was living. And his roommate moved out in his 2-bedroom apartment. And he was like, "Hey man, I know you've been curious about living here. It's a really cool little town. Like, my room's open. Like, come hang out. Let's do some Port Townsend stuff together." And we ended up living together, and we'd been kind of joking about starting a business making those camper platforms, because some people had expressed that they thought they were really cool and that they would like them. And one day we had both had, I live in Seattle now, but I had a job in Port Townsend that had a lot of stress, and it was just like night and day from working at the previous place I was at. I had a really positive working culture. This place I was working was really unorganized and toxic, and although there was a lot of room for me to be creative, I had no support. And like, it was like I was relied on for all this stuff that was completely unreasonable, and there was no acknowledgement or positivity. And it got really frustrating. And I was just like, we both would share these things with each other. And one day we were just kind of like, we both feel extremely competent and confident that we could do so much better with our own business than a lot of these places we see that are just running things like, one, not sensefully, like, there's no like logic or organization to what they're doing, but also like they're just not, there's no connection, there's no mindfulness, there's no like emotional intelligence to the way this is being run. Like the turnover's high, like people are just getting angry and burned out and they're leaving, and it's like we both felt like we could do so much better. And so that kind of, we jumped on the computer and formed an LLC, and that was about a year ago. And since then, it's, we've been changing a lot and morphing. I mean, it's still very much a startup. Like there's a lot that's, had to change and be, kind of worked through, and challenges we've had to deal with. But we've got more people on our team now, and we're making forward momentum and feeling really good about the future of where our company is and what we can do. And it's been an amazing challenge, and it's all built out of this desire to want to kind of change the way people travel and connect with the world around them through simpler means that, one, aren't going to be as expensive, and two, are going to allow you to really, manifest your own like sense of self and explore that openness of the world. And also, we just want to start a company with like good sense that treats people right and be a positive influence in our community as well. And that's ultimately, those two things are kind of the legacy I'm most interested in building. It's like I want to, be remembered for the positive influence I had in people's lives by, whether that's just as a good friend or whether that's or coworker, and realize that work doesn't have to be this arduous, stressful, terrible thing. Like there's a brighter side to, a job and career development. And I always want to be manifesting that in everything I do. But also I want to kind of shift society's thoughts around travel and like think about it in a different way that is not as wasteful. And the one little thing I can do there is offer that car camping capability as opposed to a giant gas guzzling RV or going on a big cruise ship, like scale it down. And like you find that like with less attachments in the way you travel, like the world opens up a lot more.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much here that I want to highlight in and get more details on, because I think it's so interesting. Taking things for granted, that's such a wide scale, I don't know if I would say problem, but it's definitely something I think every one of us, myself included, struggles with in multiple areas of our lives. I live in Utah, right? And there's people who travel literally from all over the world to come to Utah and see the mountains and go skiing and go climb at go to Lake Powell or go to Zion National Park. They'll travel from all over the world to go to these places. And I didn't go to Zion National Park until I think I was 18 years old. Never had been. I think I've only been skiing in Utah once. It's in my backyard. I love skiing. I love snowboarding. I just haven't done it. Like, it's just not been something I do. I just get so focused on the daily grind of life that I forget all the other stuff. And I think part of it for me, and this is something that I'd love your input on, but when I was single, I got out a lot more. I went mountain biking, went hiking 3 or 4 times a week. Like, all the time I was going and doing stuff. Now that I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old who you either have to carry or you have to deal with whining and crying and diapers and like the list goes on and on. We don't get out very much. We've just recently started like riding our bikes around town, but like that has been a challenge for me to fully experience the outdoors with children. So I'd love your inputs on traveling. I'm sure you saw people who are doing that. How are they making that? I mean, ultimately, if you make it a priority, it'll happen. I understand that. But like, what things were they doing, either from a vehicle perspective or a just pure practical like hiking perspective, how are they accommodating that, and so they're still able to get out and experience those things with their young children?
Yeah, I mean, so that's definitely like one of those things where, you know, certain things that come into your life, especially children, like really make force you to reprioritize. And in a lot of ways, like you absolutely need to, like, I'm sure it can be frustrating, like, because I know if I like the one of the main reasons I don't have a dog even is because I'm like, well, it'd make it harder to go on backpacking trips or whatever. It's like,
Just
right,
reality.
it's like I've got a lizard. I can fill his dish of food and leave him for, like, weeks, and he's probably fine. But like, so I feel you, but I talk to a lot of people who have kids and are still really deeply involved with the outdoors, and there's certainly an amount of sacrifice that's required, just because it's like logistically, I mean, like one of them's going to poop their pants, and do you really want to deal with a diaper and all this stuff on the trail? But the other side of that is being like, you can definitely start taking the kids onto easy outdoor adventures from a young age. And what a lot of parents have told me is that, like, they get this, like, when they let their kids into the outdoors and they just kind of let them explore, obviously within reason, and check stuff out, it really opens up a lot of the curiosity in the children, and like they start examining rocks and flowers and really getting kind of deep into it. And it kind of opens the parents' eyes up to, like, oh wow, like I've been overlooking all this stuff. I've been so focused on getting to the top of the mountain, I haven't even looked and seen, like, just how beautiful the texture of this, like, ancient rock that's been, worn by the wind for thousands of years is. And they're asking about it, and like, maybe I know and can explain it and like really introduce some really amazing things into their mind, and maybe we learn together what it is if I don't know. So I think with really young children, it's like there's things you can do, but it's like going to be more limited in scope for a while. But the older they get, the more you can start kind of graduating them up into, going on a real hike, going on overnight trips, and maybe, parents are carrying the bulk of their gear, but they're doing it in the outdoors. When I was young, and I was, wasn't always right there with my family, like with the enthusiasm level they had for doing those things. But later in life, being very grateful that I was exposed to that, and like having a lot of gratitude for it's definitely like a lifestyle, like if you're going to live it for a long time the way I did, that's more conducive to being single or being coupled without kids or something along those lines. Because I mean, you have so little structure, and kids kind of need structure, especially with school and all that business to consider. But if you have a big enough vehicle like a van and there's room for them, like I definitely saw some families that would go on like summer trips for a week or two with their kids in their vans, and it's close quarters, and it really forces people to like get along better and deal with their stuff. But it can be done, certainly, and is a great way to travel, not only for 6 months at a time, but for even weekends, because you can really have more flexibility in where you go and the kind of trip you can have, as opposed to being married to, like, we have to go somewhere with a hotel, we have to go to a lodge. Like, no, you can just park anywhere that's super beautiful and scenic next to a river, get your water filter, dig a cat hole to go to the bathroom, and you're set.
You're right, but that like gives me anxiety a little bit. That's so funny. No, I love it. I'm just like, as you're talking, I'm just thinking of all the trips that we went on as kids and our family. I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like the world has changed, but I'm almost certain that it's just me that's changed. I'm sure the world has not changed. It's just like my perception of what it has changed. But then I'm also thinking about now, I'm thinking, okay, well, what would it be like? I mean, like I said, we have canyons all over in Utah and very close to us. So we could, in 20 minutes, and we could be up a canyon in the woods camping. So I'm thinking, what would that be like if I took my son, he's 3 years old, but just took him camping and just let him experience all of it, Anyways. So, yeah. But that's the other thing that you brought up there, and I'm glad you did, because I think there's a lot to be said from the perspective of becoming childlike. In fact, when I spoke with Andre, he had talked about this, where you kind of go through these different stages, and the goal or the final stage is really becoming childlike, recognizing that the world is your playground and you can create whatever you want. And while you were first sharing all of your history there, I jotted down a note. Who am I when there's no other expectations? One of the benefits of that I think that I gained a lot from when I did go camping in scouts in different areas. When you're out in the wilderness, there's no society around you. There's nobody else that's expecting anything of you, behaving, language, what you wear. Like, there's no expectations about who you are or should be, or an appropriate manner to act, how loud you can be, like the noises you make, whether you want to actually speak in English or just babble on to yourself. But the reality is, like, really allowing yourself to explore your native, natural, unrefined being is so, I think it's a crucial step to really identify who are you? Who are you 6 months into the wilderness? Like, when you think of Christianity, Christ went out for 40 days and just like wandered around trying to identify who he was and comfortable with himself. So I think that that's so fascinating. And especially when you talked about the difficulties of no connection, the lack of purpose almost. And what is that like? Like, what is, so many people in our society now are uncomfortable with ourselves. Like, if we're forced to spend, I mean, I'm just as guilty. I try and, while I'm driving, at least for a half an hour a day, while I'm driving, drive in silence. But short of that, I mean, from the time I wake up, so I wake up at about 6:30, depending on the day. I'm either taking care of my baby, or I am listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts. I don't listen to very much music, but sometimes I listen to music. And the only time I'm not doing that, I literally walk around with a headset. So the only time I'm not doing that is when I'm engaging with my family, having conversations with my wife. Like, all of my time, nearly 100%, except for when I'm sleeping or it's an intentionally planned silent time, I'm have other things going on. And so the concept of, look, we're going to go out in the wilderness. There's no service. There's no music. There's just you, the sticks, the dirt, the rocks, and just go experience it. Don't even take a clock with you. And just for a few days, allow yourself to rise with the sun, go to bed with the sun, and get to the point where all that matters is you and your experience with you and nature and God. I think there's so much power in that experience. And for whatever reason, I don't know that it's really being cultivated in our society outside of, what you're doing. And I love that. Because I think when I think back to defining moments in my life, and there's a lot of defining moments that happened in those circumstances that I almost discount because I didn't love certain aspects of them. So I just, like, Boy Scouts, I would never encourage anybody to go through Boy Scouts. I didn't find it wonderfully enjoyable, right? On the other hand, I learned some incredible lessons in Boy Scouts, and becoming an Eagle Scout, I know there's a lot of people who did it easy. For me, my experience of that was not easy. It took like 400 hours of service between me and other people. It took multiple revisions of everything, and it could have just went and planted trees. That would have been the easy thing to do. But I chose to refurbish a box car that was on our school property, refurbish it, the outside of it. Well, we had to scrape off. So the people who had painted it before, they just painted right over all the decals. And so when I went to do it, that's what I was planning on doing, just painting over the decals. And I was like, oh, that'll be easy. Just spray paint, spray it down. But then they're like, no, we actually want you to scrape off all the decals. Well, you're thinking decals, there's 6 of them, 3 on each side. They're about 10 feet in diameter. So they're giant decals. They have industrial grade adhesive that is sticking them there. And it's been sitting there for probably 50 to 100 years. and your job is to scrape all those decals off. And it's just like, for a 13, 14-year-old kid, organizing that project, making sure people are safe. We had like actual blow torches that we were using to heat it up and scrape it off. But what I learned from that experience was insane, managing adults and how they think their opinion of what should be happening and what is we're going to do, so it was super helpful, and I hated every minute of it.
Yeah.
So
It's a character building experience.
Yeah, it is. And I think that I'm grateful for this conversation. I'm going to make a commitment to you and to anybody who listens to this. I'm going to go on an overnight camping trip with my son.
Right on. Because
I hate it, but I'm going to do it.
You're right. Because it's ultimately about like, you're not just going to connect with your child, your real physical child, but like your inner child as well. And I think that in all aspects of life, that's something that gets lost, and it's unfortunate because it causes so much unnecessary pain and suffering. Like, if you think about like your inner child is just being like the part of you that just wants to enjoy life and embrace the positive things and have fun and connect with others and not worry about, your meetings and appointments and the ads you're getting bombarded with and all that other man-made like stuff that has its purpose and is important in its own way. But it's like, if you go too far and just thinking about that, then you get disconnected from your own inner child. And then I've seen it so many times in other workplaces or just relationships in general, where when people don't connect to their own like needs and cultivating that inner joy, then they start viewing other people as like tools, or like, oh, it's your fault I'm not feeling good, like, and they lash out, and that creeps into so many things we do, and it creates so much senseless, just like, I don't know, like exploitation, and increase the profit margins at whatever cost. I don't want to know the details, just do it, like. And then when people are the realities of what they've done have been brought forward to them, then they just deny it and they blame other people, and it just creates a mess. And it's like, these things, I'm not saying I had the going in the wilderness as a one-trick pony for fixing all of the world's problems, but it's one tool we have at our disposal to connect with ourselves and maybe work through things that can be uncomfortable, but ultimately are going to make us better friends, better partners, better coworkers, better entrepreneurs, because we're not only going to connect with the people who are in the same boat and like want to also help make the world better, but I find that by living that truth in myself, like the financial stuff, all the other big picture things kind of sort of, maybe it doesn't get there as fast because I'm taking my own road, but it happens, and it works out because I'm putting in that effort. And it doesn't, ultimately, like, my aspirations aren't to have 10 homes and a portfolio that's worth billions of dollars. Like, I want to be, of course, financially comfortable and be able to provide and, enjoy life because of that financial stability. And I want to be able to create a business that helps do that for other people as well. But my means and what I know I need is limited well beyond, I think, what a lot of people feel they truly need. And, that's a part of capitalist culture in some ways, but it's something we all have to kind of grapple with, because inevitably, like, we can't all have 10 homes and giant properties. And it's not like, even if you had it, is it like, would it make you happy? Like, if you're not connecting to your inner child, you're just going to create a bigger empty space. And like, that's going to cause more suffering in some ways, because you have all this extra stuff you have to worry about and maintain. And it's like, that's kind of at the essence of what we're doing in our company, is like, you don't need to have tons of stuff to go out and enjoy the world, and you can live more fully that way. If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I love it. And it's actually kind of one of the next things I was going to say is like, when you're out there, you kind of start finding out, are you going to be a creator or a follower in life? And becoming a creator, especially when you have all that downtime and you're just sitting there thinking about nothing, or when you think about it from a creation perspective, if you're choosing to become a creator, that's really all there is. It's just creation. And you've got to find stuff to do. And if not physically, then in the metaphysical world, in the mentality, that brain space, what are you doing to really create the joy, create the light and life in your life, or is it only there if somebody else is bringing it to you? So huge
Mhm.
there. And then the one last thing I want to touch on before we move on here, and this is once you and your friend decided we can do something better. I think this is a huge principle. I think there's so much good about this podcast. I'm making a commitment to go do something that I'm gonna love. I'm gonna love every second of it. I'm gonna tell myself that. But there's a real pressure in society and a gaping hole that's opening up, especially with the coronavirus, basically saying, hey, it's okay to be a victim. It's okay to complain about stuff. It's okay to say something else is somebody else's problem. And what I love about what you did is, yes, you recognize these things, and you did a little bit complain to probably each other about it. But eventually, the question came, how can I become a solution? How can I become the solution? And I think that principle, we need to share it. Like, more people need to be thinking that way across all of the world. How can I become a solution? If I see something that I don't like, rather than just simply saying I don't like it, who cares if you don't like it? What are you going to do about the fact that you don't like it? And that what you do about it shouldn't, in my opinion, and I don't often use the should word, but shouldn't be something that somebody else has to do. So what you're going to do about it shouldn't be going and complaining about what somebody else is going to do. A more effective way to create change is to go and do something, create a movement that people can't deny. They can't refuse your movement if enough people believe in it. And light and love and abundance attracts more wholeness into our being. And so I love that. Speak to that a little bit more about how why you chose to become the solution, and how that principle might be applied in more areas than just a work solution, although it's crucial in a work situation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think back on this a lot, and one of the things that I reflected on, having that job that was especially toxic, was that I was lucky and privileged enough in a lot of ways in my life to have a lot of light and positivity and wholesomeness, like not only in my family and my upbringing, but in a lot of my early work situations as well. In my academic career, it was like there were places that I had been where I had seen what a good team of people working together towards a common goal who respect each other's like humanity looked like. And it was, when you've been basted in that, and like that guides a lot of your principles, then when you're dropped into something that is against that, it's like almost worse than if you were used to that. It's like you feel so extra stressed out and like just on edge, because you're like, I know like people can do better than this. Like I see like your potential and the potential of this place and of this mission and of this product or what have you, but it's being lost because something along your path or the path of this organization really got thrown off and just hasn't been dealt with and communicated about. And so, it was basically like that understanding that, like, in order for people to know that they can have something better, they have to be exposed to something better first, a lot of the time. And that's, what can't I do? I can't go and change every business and organization to be more, emotionally mindful of how it treats its employees. But what I can do is try and create something that, helps tip the scales of, what is, something that functions well and that provides a good example, and then acts on a higher intention with consideration to others other than just some kind of mindless money making machine. And so, as from a business perspective, that's kind of that's a big part of why I wanted to start one, because I knew, like, I can't fix everything, but I can create something that will be a good example and will help people. And so that was a big part of it. And a lot of it's just like that. It's like people will stay in what they know and what they're comfortable with. And in that situation, I wasn't comfortable with that because I knew that something better was possible. And so it's tough because it's like we want people to always move forward to something that's better than the situation they have. And a lot of people do that, but for a lot of people, it's so difficult because they, from the time they were born, they have been, brought up in a way, whether it was circumstances of their choosing or not, that, kind of disadvantage them in so many different aspects. And so, just being mindful that that's a reality that a lot of people go through is the first step into kind of approaching people with more compassion, but also trying to make something that is going to be a positive influence.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love it. I think what comes to my mind is like Tom's shoes, how they
Mm-hmm.
didn't try and revolutionize it. I mean, they ended up revolutionizing industry in general. I mean, I don't really know of any major corporation that marketed that way as far as like, hey, buy our shoes and we're going to give half of our profits to somebody else. And now that's a very common thing in business. Like the idea of like, you go for me, X amount of my
Mm-hmm.
profits are going to go. That's a very common tactic used in a business strategy today. But I feel like, at least for myself, I don't know of anybody who was doing that regularly on as big of a scale before Tom's shoes. They really did revolutionize the idea of like, you can have capitalism. You can actually make more money by openly sharing that when you get business, you're going to be being charitable with it. So this is an interesting concept there. I mean, if we wanted to get more access to you or learn more of your business, where would we go if we're interested? If our car could be easily turned into one of these vehicles, like where would we go to engage more with you and have that conversation?
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer your question, like, can your car be turned into one of these vehicles that you can sleep in and store gear in? The answer is probably yes. It just depends on like the size of the back. Like a Toyota Corolla is a lot less likely than a Subaru Outback. I mean, so we're making something right now called the trunk bunk that comes in a couple different lengths to fit a couple different vehicles. There's kind of a specific dimensional minimum that's required in the back for it to work. But we're trying really hard to create like more standard products that can help turn a wider array of vehicles into this kind of adventure mobile. We used to focus a lot more on custom work, but we're kind of getting away from that because we realized like we could reach a lot more people and a lot more vehicles and help people realize this travel style a lot better if we were just making more of something that was more universally kind of applicable. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, and shifting gears in that direction. But I would definitely encourage people who are interested in the business or just talking to me and connecting on any kind of subject at all to just reach out at my email first. That would be campncar@gmail.com, campncar@gmail.com. You can check us out on our website, www.campandcar.com, or check us on Facebook and Instagram, just /campandcar after the URL. Because yeah, this is really something we're serious about, and we, in the relatively near future, will be able to offer what we're making around the country, not just for local pickup. We're going to start looking into like freight and shipping options for getting these out to people a lot more easily from our production here in Washington State. So definitely look forward to connecting with more people and encourage you to follow us on social media and just reach out if you want to talk. If anything I said resonated with you, I'd love to hear from whoever might be out there.
Awesome. And just, I'm curious, you had mentioned that initially they were wooden, or you created a wooden frame. Are you going
Mm-hmm.
to stick with the wooden frames, or will you ultimately do some form of like plastic? So it could be just like a mold and mass produced.
Easier to use in some respects for like mass producing, but it's also like plastic is, kind of it has its other like baggage with it associated with pollution and all this stuff. We don't necessarily want to be a company that's like bringing more plastic production into the world on a big scale. The thing about wood that, it's not like the perfect resource, but we can kind of track like where it comes, who we're buying it from, and make sure that we're getting wood that's sourced using sustainable logging practices and that has a more like kind of ethical backbone in our minds that's more in line with our values. And it's also something that we make a lot of here in Washington State, so we're not having to, import a bunch of stuff and really have a big carbon footprint in our manufacturing process. But we are, we're a company that envisions itself in several years from now being offering a wide array of products that help people camp out of their vehicle, not just platforms, maybe like a little, shower or something you connect to the top of your car, and window covers and other things that will make that means of travel and lifestyle more, more awesome. So
No,
that's kind of where we're heading.
The reason I asked that question is because I think branding is crucial. And if you have a business, he just shared and so when you think of brand, you have, well, maybe you don't know this, but you have a story. So that's where, he shared his story about where this whole thing came from, the idea, and why he does what he wants to do. And then you have a message and a feel, and an energy of your brand. And it's important to understand that, and I wanted him to say it before I called it out, but the aspect, his brand and what he's going for, it would be inconsistent to have certain types of products, certain plastic made products, because of his branding. And again, I know he feels this way because I've had this conversation with him, but even if he didn't feel that way, let's say he doesn't care at all about the environment. Let's just hypothetically say that. It would still be inconsistent with who he's trying to market to and the products he's creating. It would be an inconsistent message for him to be producing plastic products to fulfill this mission. So to remain on brand, he's probably going to stay in some form of renewable resources to produce that, or potentially refurbish old things that are going to be coming from somewhere where he's helping the environment. Maybe he's collecting plastic from somewhere that needs to be repurposed into something better, right? But the mission and the voice and the feel of his company is going to be a sustainable and a world earth conscious brand. And that's crucial because that plays into the legacy. That plays into how this company is going to be remembered, the impact it's going to have, the effect it's going to have, right? A company that's going to make a plastic product isn't going to appeal to, and there's no offense in this this term, okay? So don't take offense. But a crunchy person, that's the term, right? You're a little bit like, you're earth focused. Those type of people, if they saw something made out of plastic, that even if they had a choice, they probably wouldn't buy it because it just doesn't align with them. They don't connect with it. It's like, why? Who made this thing out of plastic? Let's see if I can make one out of wood. They would take the plastic one and recreate it out of wood themselves because that's more in alignment with who they are. And so I think I just wanted to point that out and have that message be shared because that's crucial. I think that's really important to understand what are they trying to bring to the world and more of their mission and the voice of their company, because I love it and I respect it a lot.
Right on. Yeah. No offense at crunchy either. I'm as crunchy as they come. So I'm fully self-aware of that reality.
Good. I know some people think it's a dig. It's not a dig. It's just who we are. I'm a city boy. This is a reality. I grew up on a farm. I grew up out in the sticks, and I just like being in a city. That's my I like people.
Yeah, I get it. I live in Seattle. I love cities, but I'm also crunchy. That's the kind of the joy of a lot of these Northwest cities. And it's like they're cities of crunchy people, and everyone, kind of enjoys all the bars have big wooden slab tables and trail maps on the walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just an environment. That's so cool. I love it. So here's one of our second to last sections here. It's called Legacy on Rapid Fire. A lot like a game show, just one word to one sentence answers. First question's got to be a sentence though. Okay. But you ready for this?
Go for it.
Perfect. So what do you believe is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy today?
I mean, there's not like I don't feel held back by anything but my own ability to get work done.
Cool. And that's huge. Knowing how to, because one is getting work done yourself, and then how do I duplicate myself, and so that more people can be doing what I'm doing, so we can get more of it done. And
Hmm.
that's a challenge. It's a growing experience for us all. We all have to figure it out at some point if we want to have a bigger impact. It's not just about making more money or having a massive business. It's about changing lives, right? Microsoft, Bill Gates, when he started Microsoft, it wasn't necessarily about becoming a billionaire. That was a byproduct of him thinking that having effective communication and technology in every home would benefit society. And so he went out to serve society, and now he's a billionaire based on the fact that he was willing to serve people. Facebook, Zuckerberg, right? He created Facebook so that he could create connection across international lines, right? That's awesome. And he didn't set it out to think, oh, I just hope I'm the next multi-billion-dollar company. He set out to create connection. And so understanding, and that's exactly why I asked Steve to really share more about what products and where that's coming from, because it's about why are they doing what they're doing, not necessarily what they're doing or what the outcome of what they're doing is. I hope you become wildly successful and your business takes off. That would be awesome, because that means you're helping more people. So what do you think the hardest thing you've ever accomplished has been?
Um, Going on a music tour, probably. That was logistically and emotionally like the hardest thing I've ever done. One of them at least for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Let's probably we can have a whole other
It's all
conversation
good. It's
about
a
that.
whole thing too.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think the greatest success at this point in your life has been?
Honestly, like just having created the community of super supportive, beautiful, kind people that I have, that no matter what happens, like always encourage and support me to do better and move on to the next thing. That's my foundation of just like success in a nutshell.
Love it. And what is like one secret habit, mindset, or behavior that you believe contributes most to your success?
Making time like every morning to do yoga and like before I start doing anything is honestly like huge. And aside from that, just continually listening and cultivating, the well-being of my inner child for sure.
Love it. What are a few books that you'd recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience?
I think this is when I told you, Pieces Every Step by Thich Nhat Hanh is a book about mindfulness. It's short, it's easy to read, but that was the book that kind of got me really going on that path of like being present with myself and learning how to be a better, more compassionate person as I navigate all the kind of negativity in the world. That book just gives you so many tools and frames things in a way very succinctly and in a really like accessible secular way to kind of understand the teachings. Um, Great book. Yeah, I think the other one I was big on just to kind of get me started on the business and learn that working in business isn't about doing the task yourself all the time. It's about setting up a network of people and functions and tools to make the task better. Would be the E Myth. And that's a pretty well-known book among the entrepreneur world. It's a pretty big one, but I think if anyone's interested in starting a business, like if I had to recommend one, like that's a great place to start for sure. Just because it you see it really walks you through like why does the person who's running the show by themselves have such a hard time, like, and how to avoid that pitfall.
Yep. No, I love it. That's so true. That book has saved me a lot of heartache and pain and trial and error just by understanding. Cool. So here's my favorite question, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I hope I hope you guys see kind of the consistency in the message here. But the question is kind of what legacy are you building? So imagine yourself 6 generations from now. So this is your great, 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 great grandchildren. They're sitting around a table discussing your life. You have the opportunity to come in, kind of listen in, you're on the wall, and see what they're saying, listen to that conversation. What do you want them to be saying about you and your legacy 6 generations from now?
Honestly, the thing that is probably most important is just like being remembered as a kind person who had a great vigor and, spirit for life and was very positive influence in other people's existence. That would be the thing that would touch me more than anything else. I think just warm, fuzzy feelings about me being there, like, and if how that kind of translates into everything else, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. Just and that's more of a feeling and essence that can be carried on, and you can actually create a movement out of it. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. I'm committed to you. You can follow up with me in 3 weeks and ask me if I did it. And anybody who listens to this, it will have already been done. So you can call me and say, "Hey, did you ever go on that camping trip, Sam? Where's the pictures to prove it? It didn't happen." Yeah, call me out on it, please. Hold me accountable as well. But I'm
sounds good. I'll hit you up. I'll make sure you're going out and cultivating your joy and all that business.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's gonna happen. I'm gonna grin through it.
Excellent. Well, Thanks so much for having me on. This has been great.
Yeah, no problem. We'll talk to you later, Stephen, and we'll catch you guys next time on Fuel Your Legacy. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.